Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show, or as it may also be known as, the Onshore Flow Show, which is pretty much where we're going to be this week. The Joe and Joe Weather Show brought to you by Wholesale Holiday Lighting by Giannini. And tomorrow is their open house free event for contractors at 164 Ocean Avenue in Lindenhurst from 9 a.m. till 6 p.m. This way you can learn everything you need to know about being or getting into the business of holiday lighting and holiday decorating. And food and beverages will be served. That ought to get a good crowd. They're at 164 Ocean Avenue, Lindenhurst. You can RSVP at 631-957-5106, or you can head to the website, which is liholidaylighting.com. And everything's coming in spite of the supply shortages and the supply chain bottlenecks. They've gotten their deliveries. So Christmas, as we count down the days, Wholesale Holiday Lighting by Giannini. Also brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. 631-756-1125, the phone number there. And salt is front and center, which there is a shortage of salt also, and prices are up. But Omni has the lowest prices in the tri-state area for everything from rock salt to Pellido to mag ice pellets and flakes and anything else you need to be ready for the upcoming winter season. OmniTrueValue.com is the website. So here we are, Mr. Rayo. I think we all pretty much survived the Facebook blackout after the black eye that they have, but with everything else going on. But life did manage to go on without it today, I must say.
I said, though, this afternoon to Renata, I said, there's some people who are just going crazy right now. I don't have Facebook. I don't have it. What am I going to do? What did we do without Facebook? Or before Facebook? I can't even remember what we used to do without Facebook.
I've been on Facebook since 2009 or 2008 or something like that.
Yeah, so what did you do before Facebook came into play?
Where did all, the funny thing is, when the memories come up about, pictures I might have posted, 9 times out of 10, I have no recollection of whatever it was. And then I try to read about it, and it's like, I was there, really? I really was there? But yeah, we all managed to get along today.
I think so. I think I will. Yeah, what?
Do you have like YouTube open somewhere with the audio on? Because I'm hearing us.
YouTube with the audio? Nope. I'm on mute right now with the YouTube that I'm watching.
Okay. No, I just heard me say okay. Oh, good Lord, it's starting again. I don't have it on. Right? No, I'm...
Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth.
Okay.
Earth.
It's really low and... It's very low and very tinny, but I do hear it from someplace. Oh, good Lord. Oh, well. As long as it's not obnoxious and no one's complaining yet, so hopefully it'll be okay. So we got a new work week has begun. You had some rain. I had some rain. I had quite a bit of rain. And then the sun would come out, and then another downpour would develop, and then I'd have more rain. In the midst of all of that, when the breeze would pick up, the leaves started coming down. It is definitely looking like fall out here in North Georgia.
Well, we had about a half an inch of rain here, and actually I spent much of yesterday afternoon with the leaf blower just blowing away a lot of the leaves that were on the ground, and it wasn't a very pleasant looking day out there, and indeed we did have that easterly flow that made it feel kind of, may I use the term clammy or raw a little bit, but we survived, and hopefully things will get a little bit better now in the next few days.
Okay. Just to let everybody know on the board, those of you who are on my subscription platform on Patreon, I did put up a piece today about the upcoming winter and talked about some of the things that are going on right now, including a weak polar vortex and the teleconnections and some of the climate models. Pretty interesting, Joe, because I was looking at the CFS model, and it poses a good argument for a more of a front-loaded winter this time around than a back-loaded one, but we'll see. I mean, there's still a lot of variables. Siberian snow cover indicator, which used to work, but then it stopped working a few years ago, is already showing some pretty robust snow in Siberia, and particularly in the eastern flank, which is the one. I'm sorry, the western flank, which is the one that's more important. So it'll be interesting to see. We'll know at the end of the month what that says, and we'll see what the polar vortex does between now and then, because there's supposed to be Dr. Judith Cohen's been talking about a disruption in the polar vortex going on this weekend, and maybe that'll be the start of a weakening of the polar vortex early.
Well, the one thing that impressed me, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to share screen to show this to everybody, is the Climate Prediction Center's latest forecast for, let me just move it up here, first for the next 6 to 10 days. First of all, let me just say that I like very much the brand new type of maps that they are using at the Climate Prediction Center. They're a lot more easy on the eyes, if you will. And as you could see, Joe, for the period from the 10th through the 14th of October, they have a broad part of the central and eastern United States above normal. And I'm not sure. Now, this is the one thing I don't like about this, is that you can't really tell easily, what percentage above normal this is. But it looks like it's on the order of about 70 to 80%, which is pretty high. And now to go along with those above normal conditions in terms of temperatures, take a look at the precipitation. Precipitation is going to be near normal during that same time frame, October 10th to the 14th, according to the CPC, Climate Prediction Center. Below normal up across central and northern New England. A lot of above normal. Looks like a very wet period for much of the central and especially western part of the United States. And then if we go even further beyond, let's say 8 to 14 days out, we're still above normal, still seeing temperatures that are above normal here in our neck of the woods. And take a look at this, precipitation-wise, below normal, near to below normal precipitation. So what this seems to be suggesting, though, over the next, let's say the turning point will be, or the pivot point will be around this time next week, next Monday, or the 11th of October. After that, it looks like next week, if this is going to pan out, we're going to have a spell of mild and relatively dry weather. Very nice autumn weather coming our way for a good part of next week, which sounds very good when you consider at above normal temperatures. What could that mean? We've been near 70 degrees or above 70 for many days. Looks like that's going to carry right on through into maybe next week as well.
Yeah, somewhat above normal, but not crazy above normal. And it's not like we're going to be in the 80s and for days on end. I mean, that the high to the north of the onshore flow, it will keep that down. The one you're kind of, you're battling two opposite teleconnections here. They're sort of working against each other because you've got this negative PNA, Pacific North America index, showing what would normally show a big ridge in the east and a deep trough in the west. Well, it's got the deep trough in the west part right, but the ridge in the east, while it's there, it's being tempered somewhat because of the North Atlantic oscillation. The higher the normal pressures up in the North Atlantic are kind of pressing that ridge down a bit. So we're not getting superheated air. And I mean, I have to tell you, even here today, because of all the clouds that are around, that keeps temperatures from getting much above. I mean, I think we might have gotten in the low 70s today, but we didn't get much higher than that.
I guess we've just about gone through the limit now of hoping, or not hoping, but thinking that you're ever going to hit 90 degrees this particular season or this particular year?
It's certainly up by where I am up in the mountains. I mean, it would have to be an incredibly unusual setup for it to happen. Some kind of front coming down from the north with a big upper ridge sitting right on top of me for several days. It's the nights get cool here, even in the situation we're in right now, which is basically sort of dirty warm air with the ridge position. The nights still manage to get down into the 50s. So this morning actually was quite nice in that I had a low cloud deck that was very shallow, and above it you could see big patches of blue, and to the south there was some heavy rains, and you see the dark blue clouds to the south, and in the midst of all of that was a really nice, beautiful rainbow this morning in the southern sky, which was a nice surprise.
You don't often see rainbows. If you think about all the rainbows that you've probably seen in your life, I think I can only think of 1 or 2 times that I've actually saw a rainbow in the morning, which is kind of weird because they usually are in the evening or late afternoon, which means that I usually would have to look toward the east to see a rainbow, since it's dependent upon the sun, and the sun in the afternoon is usually over in the west. But to see a rainbow in the morning, well, I guess you'd have to look to the west because the sun is in the east.
Yeah,
and
it was not in the southern sky. I should correct that. It was actually, you're right. It was in the western sky. And with the mountains, I guess the sun angle must have just, whatever the sunrise, the angle must have hit it just right. And the showers were in the west and south of me, to the west and south of me. So it sort of reflected all the moisture that was coming my way. So the rainbow was actually a forebearer of bad weather, because usually when we get rainbows up in the northeast, because you're looking on the western sky, it's usually after a thunderstorm has passed by. And for me, it's right. It's the reverse. It's a sign of trouble coming.
Rainbow in the morning, sailors take warning. Just, I want to answer Tom Cortino because he posted on the chat board. Said, Joe Rayo, early call for Columbus Day, please. All right, Tom. I'm not sure where you are. If you're in the tri-state metropolitan New York area,
he's on Long Island,
say right now. He's on Long Island. Okay, so right now it looks, and this is like a solid week away. Columbus Day this year on the 11th. I would say it looks sunny to maybe partly cloudy. Temperature, Long Island, maybe around 70 or 72, nice and mild for this time of the year. And doesn't look like we have any precipitation. So right now I'm willing to bet. I'm maybe not willing to put any money down just yet, but I'm willing to think that it looks nice, decent, fair skies, clouds and sun, 70 or thereabouts for the holiday on Monday. And of course, traditionally the day October 12th, that'll be next Tuesday. I don't even want to look that. I don't even want to look much beyond the weekend, but since it's a holiday on Monday and Tom has been asking, I'll stick my neck all the way out and say it doesn't look bad right now.
Izzy D hitting super chat tonight. Thank you, Izzy. And Izzy also mentions the fact that Lonnie Quinn, and we all know how close Lonnie and I are. Lonnie Quinn mentioning your name on the air. Nice.
Yes,
really
he did.
Nice.
I'm sitting there, and Lonnie said, "I want to share something with you," and he said, "And this was actually put together by my good friend," and then he actually says, "Many of you probably know who he is, Joe Rayo." And I looked at Renata. I said, "Really?
Nice.
People know who I am?"
Well, especially
Lonnie,
especially when the bills are due.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, well, a lot of people saw that and commented on to me about that. So
was that a
thank you, Lonnie?
Was that a shorts? Was that a rolled up shirt sleeve moment when he mentioned your name?
No, he didn't. He in fact, it was funny. I'm watching, and he went through the forecast very quickly. And I looked at my watch and I said, he only did that in about 30 or 40 seconds. I said, he must be pressed for time, or maybe it's a heavy show. But then he spent the rest of his time, and that was a good 2 minutes, showing like 4 or 5 different graphics on the numbers that I had on Facebook a few days earlier, talking about how over the last 152 years at Central Park, that the 10 rainiest summers were usually followed 7 out of 10 times by a below normal to rather much below normal winter in terms of snowfall.
By the way,
normal.
no, I just want to say something about that because I was looking at some of the years, and what was really interesting to me was the fact that on some, and this goes to, and you will agree with me. I'm certainly not disparaging your research, but we are talking about one specific point. And on a couple of those years where there were records available, because some of them went too far back, but on the ones that were available, Brookhaven Labs on Long Island actually had above normal snowfalls for those years. For I think on 2 of them, had above normal snowfall, and in both cases we're talking much above normal snowfall too. So it's kind of interesting. I'm
Right.
Recalling. One of those winters was the one I always referred to as the Suffolk County winter, because that winter, everything, the line was somewhere in Nassau. The back edge of the snow was for a number of events was in Western Long Island, and Suffolk County just got clobbered, one storm after another, and everybody else was sitting around with their hands thrown up in the air saying, what's going on? So yeah, always remember, when you reference one point, kind of, I mean, not you, but I'm just telling the audience, you remember when you look at these stats, you're really, it'd be, well, it would be interesting to see, for example, if we pulled up Albany for those same years, just to see what they, just to see how they did in those particular years on their wettest summers, the ones that match up. But that would require a lot of digging. Albany, maybe looking at Boston, Hartford, that kind of thing.
One nice thing about the National Weather Service in New York, which many other weather services do not have, is on their menu. You can go to their past weather page, and you can access a ton of information going all the way back to the very beginning at 1869. Not just, the regular monthly or daily weather records, but they give you, Joe, as was the case in this particular situation, they gave right out in front the 10 wettest summer seasons,
Right.
Meteorological summer, June, July, and August. They do the same thing for the winter.
Mm-hmm.
They do the same thing for the spring. They do the same thing for the fall. They have a lot of information. Now, you just said about Albany, it'd be interesting, but from what I can remember, going
it's hard
back to the
find
Albany pages,
on the other sites.
Right, they just don't do that.
Yeah.
So, kudos to the National Weather Service in New York or in Upton for doing that. And you're right also that all of these statistical tidbits that I throw out sometimes is specifically for Central Park for New York. And you're right, it doesn't often work much beyond 25 or 50 miles in most any other direction. It's good for the city and for the 5 boroughs, but it's not good if, for example, you're out on Eastern Long Island like you were for a long time, or sometimes even up where I am here in
I was going to say
County.
I was going to say up your way, northwest Jersey, maybe north and west of 287. It could be a whole different world. So yeah, but it's fun to look at the stats because there certainly is the temptation to say because it happened that time, it'll happen. It might happen this time. Past performance is no guarantee of future outcomes, but unfortunately, sometimes that's the only thing we have to go on. So
and as I also said on Facebook, this particular thing about how 7 out of 10 winters, and one of the things I did was I did not use, and I'm still waiting. This is one I don't want to take a pot shot at the folks over at Upton, but they really ought to change their statistics now, their long-term statistics, because if you add up on the almanac pages for the 30 years that they have, the snowfall amounts in New York City, Central Park, still come out to be about 24 inches. We know, based upon the most recent 30-year string of years, that it's now closer to 30.1 inches as the average for snowfall during a typical winter season. So with 30.1 or 30.2 inches, those 7 out of 10 cases of wet summers come out to be on average about 17 inches, almost half of what is now the norm for snowfall at Central Park.
Right.
The 3 cases that stand out are like 120% of normal, which is up in the 40-inch plus range. But the thing that I pointed out on Facebook is that we will probably know by the end of December, once again, the infamous 3-inch rule, because in those 7 cases that have below normal snowfall, in all of those cases, the snowfall for the month of December was less than 3, and in many cases, less than 2. And I think 2 cases, 0, nothing, 0 amount of snow fell in December. And the 3 other cases, anywhere from 6 to 14 inches of snow fell in December. So I said, well, if this pans out, we'll know by the end of December. But if this is one of those Decembers where we have a ton of snow, forget about that study. That's not going to mean anything, because we'll probably indeed have a lot of snow for the upcoming winter at Central Park and probably everywhere else. But if it comes out to be like 0, if it comes out to be like 0 or 1 or a couple of inches during December at Central Park, then there's a fair chance that what we're going to have is a below normal winter based upon that study.
Right, and it certainly worked. It certainly worked last year, because we did have a moderate snowfall in mid-December, only to have it all washed away.
Well, we had that big on Christmas Eve,
right, only to have it all washed away on Christmas Eve.
Right. We had that 10-inch snowfall in the middle part of December. But the other thing that is interesting, Joe, statistically, is from the year before, when Central Park had 4.8 inches of snow for the entire winter season. Did a little bit of a looking back on the numbers and found that in all the years where we had a paucity, there's a $5 word for you, a paucity, 5 inches or less of snowfall, we came up with the very next winter, we came up with at Central Park 40 or more inches of snow. That's why, by the way, I was PO'd that we didn't get 40 inches.
Yeah,
this
but
year.
you know what?
1.4 inches short.
What was it? 38.3. What was it? An inch and a half short or something?
38.6. 38.6 inches.
You know,
I wanted my 1.4 inches, Joe.
That's close enough, because everybody else managed to do over 40. By the way, for you Long Island folks, just a reminder, iSlip's numbers are not good numbers in terms of statistics, because of the fact that I think prior to 2007, the airport used to close at night. So there was no weather observations taken. So if it snowed at night, it didn't get measured. So there's a lot of snowfalls that occurred in the stretch, in the 90s, and not that many in the 90s, but certainly from 2000 to 2006, where if you look up the data, there's vast amounts of snowfall data that's just missing because of the fact that the airport was closed. Brookhaven, on the other hand, is a much better measure of snowfall for inland areas on Long Island, and their 30-year average, if you want to go use a 30-year average for them, is now up at around probably at around 41 or 42, because of the vast number of years in the 2000 to 2000, in the 2010 range that produced 60 inches or more, and in a couple of cases 70 inches or more. So those numbers are skewed way up from their old mean, which was at about 31 3/4, which is their long-term average. Michael McGuire hitting Super Chat tonight, Joe. His location, 1 inch of rain in about 20 minutes today, and he says day 1 of at least 5 more to go. Well, I don't know. I'm optimistic for Wednesday and Thursday. I think this high may push down far enough south, push the frontal boundary far enough south, so that we may see some decent improvement in the weather conditions. But we still, I think, have to get through tomorrow because of there's still a lot of clouds to work through, and we got to wait for that high to build on in. I'm going to bring up the satellite and the satellite loop, and you see now that with the sunset, but beforehand, a little that twisting going on in the lower lakes there, a little low that's moving east, and you've got this east-west frontal boundary. We're just kind of waiting for it to start to sag to the south and the low to go by, and then maybe some of that drier air in eastern Canada and in northern Maine can make it down here. And I think Wednesday, I think it will on Wednesday.
Yeah, we have had a nice stretch so far. October has been very, very nice. Today was one of the clinker days, if you will, with the cloud cover. We had some rain, significant rain last night, kind of a drizzly or spitty type of rain today. But we've been getting some nice deliveries from Canada of late. And I agree with you, Joe. There may very well be a push of dry air coming in here to salvage the latter part of this week. So hopefully that will be the case. I do want to answer two questions on the chat board. Number one, Steve Lapointe, who said, Joe Ray, you should have told him, I think he was referring to Lonnie Quinn, to come on tonight's show. Well, the problem is, and I've asked not just Lonnie, I've asked people like Nick Gregory and a couple others, would you come on our Joe and Joe show? And the problem is that the TV stations they work for either frown on their appearing on programs like ours, maybe because they think that they're going to say something controversial. I can feel for that, Joe. When I was at News 12, I had to answer like a billion questions. Oh, they want you to appear on WABC radio? Well, ask them what questions they're going to ask you. And we need to know, and have them send a list of things and blah, 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 blah. All of this BS. And I tell them, and I'm sure Lonnie and Nick and others will say to their stations, they're only going to play us up. They're going to bring good publicity for us. They're going to tell people, that, hey, this is great. He's on such and such TV. Watch that TV show. But these corporate people, they have it set in their minds like appearing on a show like ours may only be bad or may be controversial for them and their station. So what can I say? That's the way things are sometimes on television or broadcasting.
They live in fear, Joe.
Right.
They live in fear.
And Tom Cortino says, Lonnie Quinn is not a degreed meteorologist, so I don't watch him. Well, let me point something out to you, Tom. Lonnie Quinn has been in New York TV, and he has been recognizable for many, many years now. He's been around for about 13 or 14 years. And the reason for Lonnie's longevity, and people like Al Roker, for example, who's been on for a million years, is the way that they interact with their audience. I saw this in person in June during the solar eclipse when I was on with Lonnie out in Westport, Connecticut. We were covering the eclipse. There were about 100 people, and Lonnie was just like going in the crowd, pulling people alongside him and he says, hey, what's your name? And how do you doing? And and it's stuff like that makes you a popular figure in weather. And by the way, Lonnie may not be a degreed meteorologist, Joe, but I don't know if you knew this. He's a pilot.
He's a pilot.
So
he knows his stuff. He does a very good job. He really does.
Yes.
Yeah. He really does. John Charles, this is I'm trying to understand this question. How come News 12 let you guys do the show before your broadcasts on here? I don't know. I haven't worked for News 12 in a decade.
Wait a minute. What was that? What was the question?
John Charles said, "How come News 12 let you guys do the show before your broadcasts on here?" But neither of us. I haven't worked for. I freelanced at News 12. I haven't been a regular at News 12 since 1996, and I did freelance for a while from like 09 to 13 or so. But yeah, I don't know why I don't work there, and you don't work. You haven't worked there since 2015. What was it, 17?
My last day was the day before Christmas Eve in 2016. So I can't believe this. I just realized this coming Christmas Eve, it'll be 5 years since I have been gone from News 12. That's amazing. It seems like only
Oh,
a
it
couple of
goes.
years
Yeah,
ago.
I
But
no. Listen, it goes very, very fast. I could still
yes,
I could still remember the phone call that I got from the uh, from. It seems like yesterday when I got the phone call from the. Um, was it the news? I think it was the news director letting me go at Pix, and that was back in 2007. So that was
right.
14 years ago.
Tom Cortino, you're wrong. He said Mark Dannon was fired by CBS for purchasing cocaine. That is true. But he said that's why Lonnie is there. A lot of people don't remember that after they got rid of Mark Dannon, they brought in an African American weathercaster by the name of David Rogers. And David Rogers was there from 1997 to, I believe, 2008 or 9. And then for whatever reason, they let him go and they brought Lonnie in to do the weather at Channel 2. And Lonnie's been there about as long as anybody has been there for quite some time now. So he continues to proliferate and continues to remain popular at Channel 2. And long live Lonnie, I guess.
John clarified it when we used to do the show when we were both working at FiOS. So FiOS had no problem with us doing it because,
Right.
we brought, they were big on social media. They were trying to push their social media at the time, and I had a following bigger than all of their Facebook pages combined, and didn't and never mind the YouTube following. So yeah, no, they were okay with it. But that was different because we really, I mean, when we brought people on, if I remember correctly, most of the time when we did bring people on, it would be our other coworkers that were working other shifts. But so we were all doing it in the same place. So okay, I understand. Yeah. Sometimes people confuse the fact they lump everything together. If you've worked at a bunch of different stations, but they, which is understandable if you were used to seeing me on one particular station, and then but I've been in a few other places, at different places in my 40 years in the New York area. So yeah, but that clears up what you were saying before. So anyhow,
But management was very weird. They sometimes they would do things that you'd say like, what? What are you doing? What are you crazy? Joe, I honestly believe that if we were at News 12, we probably would have been told we can't do this show. I know that I don't know if you want to mention the fact that at FiOS when we were together at FiOS had no problem with you occasionally filling in at Pix 11, but that never would have happened if you were at News 12 because they just didn't go for that, and I don't think they would have gone for doing what we're doing right now.
Well, FiOS also. I mean, I told them going in, I had my websites, I had my YouTube channel, and I was building it all up, and that was a condition for me that I wanted to still be able to do all that stuff. So they had no problem with it. And as I said, it was an advantage to them to have us out there, exposed to an audience that covered the whole region. So it worked both ways, and that's fine. I didn't have any kind of issue with that. But I'm long past the point now. I mean, I would never go work for anybody who would say to me, okay, if you want to work here, you're going to have to stop doing what you're doing. Because I've spent the better part of the last 8 years building all this up, and I would like to spend the next 8 years building it up even more. So this is my baby. I don't want, I'm not going to give this up. And anyway, it's even silly to think about it because ain't nobody going to hire me. Just not happening.
Well,
because I'm not shaving my goatee.
It's a crazy world. It's a crazy world of broadcasting, and again, I think you said it best a few minutes ago, Joe. Paranoia at any little tiny little thing, which is why, sadly, we won't be able to see good people probably like Nick or Lonnie make an appearance unless I grovel or beg and plead with them to come on. But they just, the powers that be Just simply
Right,
say,
but
look,
then,
we
but
don't want.
once they stop working, they'll be begging to come on.
Yes,
Begging.
absolutely,
Yeah, I have
absolutely.
to update the fee list. Tom said.
Did you
Tom.
did you talk to did you go? Yeah, did you talk with Bill?
Oh, he and I had a conversation. Yes.
Okay. All right.
We're still working on it. Tom says, Tom, you said it correctly. This is the greatest format for the two of us because we can go into his depth and not have to do everything, not to have to do something in 3-minute segments. Yeah, that's right. It's our show. We can do what we want, say what we want, go on when we want. You know, which brings Mr. Ruben Fairchild to mind. I would complain because we didn't have a set schedule. We didn't do this and we didn't do that. It's like I already had a producer. I don't need that anymore.
And I just want to clear one more thing up, and then we can move on to weather. Steve LaPointe, who says FiOS fired us. FiOS was the one who fired us. No, Steve. What happened was that RNN, Regional News Network, had a contract with Verizon for carrying our newscasts, and Verizon called it FiOS One News. But as we came on down to 2019, the contract was to be renewed in October of 2019. Little did we know that behind the scenes, the people who now own News 12, Cablevision sold off to a company called Altice back at the end of 2016. Altice now owns Optimum and News 12. And little did we all know, working at FiOS One News, that Altice was talking to Verizon and offering them News 12 and a couple of other channels, I don't know which ones they were, at like bargain basement prices. And they said, how would you like to have News 12 and all these other channels to appear on Verizon? And Verizon took the bait. And once they took the bait, Altice said, well, now that you've got News 12, what do you need those guys at FiOS 1 for? And so Verizon turned around to RNN and said, hey, we don't need you anymore. We're not renewing your contract in October of 2019. And even though RNN did their level best to negotiate in good faith with them and say, hey, let's talk this over, Verizon said, no, you're gone as of November of 2019. So they didn't fire, we weren't fired by RNN and FiOS. We were fired or we were let go because, again, another broadcasting agency came in and negotiated with Verizon and changed their mind and told them, you don't need those guys anymore. Come with us. And that's how we ended up. We and 148 other people lost their jobs thanks to that little, chicanery of what was going on underneath the desk, so to speak.
In the weeks leading up to that, I knew I knew that there was some stuff going on along those lines. Not completely specific, but I don't know how much of it I shared with you with that while it was happening. I might not have, if only because of the fact that I didn't want you to get worked up or upset. I don't remember.
Yeah.
Did I tell you any of the stuff when it was going on?
You may have.
Okay.
I kind of blanked out on a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, no, I'm actually blanking out right now, but I do remember the fact that there were things that were happening both on our side and on the other side, and the television business is very small. Everybody knows each other and everybody talks to each other, so there was info going back and forth that something was up. And well, anyway, it doesn't matter because you know what? This is where I wanted to be anyway. I've always said that I always wanted that. I wanted to leave long before the end came. So because I wanted to do this 24/7 and not work for anybody anymore. And that was sort of the push that I needed to say, okay, well, now you don't have a job, so you're on your own. Time for the bird to fly. And my
Krista, Christiapedia says, no offense to Joe and Joe, but I hate News 12. They used to be good, but now they just repeat the news every 15 minutes. When they were taken over, when the Dolan family, who owned Cablevision for over 30 years, handed it off to this new company, Altice, which was from Europe. They didn't know who Joe Chiaffi or Joe Rayo or Bill Corbell or any of the other fine people who had worked and toiled in that vineyard for many, many years. They didn't know who they were. And what they did was they basically got rid of all the old veterans and brought in much younger people who were a lot cheaper to hire, as opposed to people who had been there for a good number of years, like myself. So that's basically what you, as Flip Wilson used to say, the late great Flip Wilson, what you seize is what you get. And what you seize now on Channel 12 is what you get, honey.
It's true. All right, enough. Let's go to the radar, because
yes,
we do have some weather going on. So let's go to the radar. And since we've been talking so much, I have to refresh it because it's old data. So let me refresh this. And a few rumbles of thunder, by the way, this evening. David Schwartz on the chat board indicating that he had a few rumbles of thunder, and it looks like there's that leftover cell now is in southwestern Connecticut. It's been raining for a good part of the day through upstate New York, either side of the I-90 corridor, from just east of Buffalo all the way to Boston. They probably put down a couple of inches of rain in parts of southeastern New England today. In the meantime, the precip becomes widely scattered once you go south, and then we got this patchy rain that's flowing on the bottom of all of this, that's coming out of the Gulf of Mexico, and this is some of the stuff that I had to deal with today. And there's some more to the southwest, which means I will be hearing it on my metal roof before too long. Otherwise, we've got a little bit of rain in Southern California, a little upper low down off the coast there, producing some showers just to the east of San Diego, and also not too far from LA and in Arizona. And we're seeing also some showers up in the Pacific Northwest. The Weather Service on their watches and warnings map, which will load momentarily here. We've got flash flood watches up for much of the state of Alabama, the Florida Panhandle, and the northwestern third of Georgia, including me, under a flash flood watch, because if FWPC is right, I could wind up with several or more inches of rain over the next few days. I saw Alfred Phillips, and we do have stuff going on in the great state of Alaska, although it is a big state in Alaska. We have a rather large area of winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories. And let's just check, because I always like to check the forecast. So let's see if I can load this up and see. Oh, today's random spot, Joe, is Utopia Creek Indian Mountain LRRS Airport. Symbol PAIM, as in Mary, which is interesting.
Wow. That's a mouthful.
Yes.
That's a mouthful.
So they have a winter storm warning. This is starting on Tuesday and going through Thursday night. So I don't see any snow amounts in the actual forecast. Let's see what the statement says. Winter storm warning for the next 3 days. It's a long duration event, or, they're not too shabby here. Winter storm warnings in effect. Heavy snow travel will be difficult to impossible. Total snow accumulations of 6 to 10 inches spread over 3 days. All right. And why not? I guess that does make travel a bit difficult. And we also, by the way, before I forget, because I forgot the other day when the chairman hit Super Chat. So thank you, Scott. And he did it again today. Thank you, Scott. October 33rd and 4th, 1987, heavy wet snow dropped as much as 20 inches of wet snow in the Catskills. Never too early for the snow weenies. I would agree with that. I would agree with that. We've got, by the way, SPC snuck this in, a little marginal risk. I guess it's already played out, though, for central and South Jersey, southeastern PA, down into Maryland and northeastern Virginia. I don't know if they're thinking something might fire up in the overnight period. I'm not sure. But I mean, it looks to me that most of what's there is done. Most of what's up there is done. Only just reading really quick. Yeah, I mean, this was for whatever happened late afternoon. It turned out that there were stronger cells further to the north. I didn't see any severe thunderstorm warnings that went up with any of the thunderstorms that popped up on the radar. And for tomorrow, there's a teeny tiny area of marginal risk in parts of central Mississippi, and also an area of marginal risk back through Arizona. And I believe there's no other severe weather risk as we move on to the rest of the week. So that's a plus. Just some general thunderstorm activity. And WPC's rainfall forecast, let me refresh this. And excuse me, over the next 7 days, an additional ½ inch, quarter to a half an inch for eastern PA to southern New England. The amounts start to go up as you go further south. And of course, you can see the big area that's being indicated for the southern and up, not almost into the central Appalachians there, up the Blue Ridge Mountains, an area of 3 to 5 inches of rain, and I'm in that, so that justifies the flash flood watches, and also down in the Florida Panhandle, and a general area of an inch or more extending up into Virginia, West Virginia, Kentucky, and even kind of nosing into Western Ohio and Eastern Indiana. In the west, we're seeing some rain up in the northern plains, also precip in the Rockies. Now, some of that may wind up being snow in the highest elevations, and in the Pacific Northwest, seeing another. Remember the trough is the upper trough is in the western part of the United States, so they're getting all the action right now while we just kind of sit here and wait. And by the way, Joe, as I mentioned, I've got the teleconnections. Kind of interesting. At the moment, the PNA is sharply negative, and it kind of bounces around for the next week and a half or so. And then toward the end of the forecast period, as we get into the middle of the month, it starts to spike positive. So that might be the first sign of something maybe temporarily changing. We'll see if it winds up verifying. And the NAO, which is negative right now, and actually rather sharply negative, is going to come up a little bit, but stays negative. And then a lot of the members actually drop and make it more negative as we head toward the middle of the month. So it might be indicating that this warmer pattern might get a brief interruption with something coming down from the trough, briefly coming back into the east after mid-month for a short period of time. But we'll see. We'll look at these from day to day because as we get deeper into the winter season, these sorts of things are going to be more important, and it's probably a good thing for us to get used to seeing it and start paying attention to all the changes. So I'm loading up the things, so you can while that loads, you talk for a while.
Well, things happen very quickly as we get now into the winter season, and sometimes it gets scary even if you try to anticipate what's going to happen much beyond 3 or 4 days. This is why I say, I wish there was some way that we could get everybody, all the broadcast outlets, to go back to the 5-day forecast. Instead, we have 7, and in a couple of cases, we have 10-day forecasts. And you know what you could do with those 10-day forecasts, especially if they're printed, you can wrap them up and put them in your bird cage, or use something else for them, because they're almost next to useless, especially once you get past day 6 or 7. By the way, Joe, I'm looking at my own radar, seeing what's on my radar. If you want to put that up on the screen.
Yep. Hold on, just a second.
This is a bit of a different radar from the one you've been shown.
Yeah, how old is he now?
And by the perplexed look on his face, it would appear to me that he is not quite sure exactly where or when the DBZ is going to be reaching a noteworthy peak, or which way the movement of the cells are. He just looks like he's bewildered, which, by the way, that's the same look that sometimes you and I have when we're looking at the model guidance in the wintertime, and the GFS is saying one thing, and the European and the Canadian is saying something quite different.
I was thinking along those lines. Yes.
Yes.
Too funny. All right, let's put Radar to bed. He's got to be in. How old?
We just did.
How old is he?
Oh, he's got to be in his 70s now.
I would think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think because he's definitely older than us, not by a lot. We seem to be catching up. So we do. Interestingly enough, I started the show. If you recall, I said that we are in the onshore flow show, and if you look at the GFS in that high that's in eastern Canada, it just basically sits there all week long. It jumps around a little bit. A new one forms north of Maine and then starts to build down. So I mean, here we are between now and Sunday. It's Monday. The little wave is going by and the front pushes through. I'm still optimistic that Wednesday that high pushes down far enough south that we could see a decent day, and we might even hold it into Thursday. But you still have to pay attention to the wind coming in off the ocean. And then late in the week and going into the weekend, and now you've got the high up somewhere northeast of New Brunswick on Saturday, and you can see the isobars there. The easterly isobars is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 isobars running from southern Maine all the way down into North Carolina. The area that's off the south, or this whole area that's off the southeast coast, there's lower than normal pressures are going to be there because of the fact you got the big high up to the north. Lower than normal pressures are going to be there all week and into next weekend. And the GFS continues to insist, as it has for many, many runs now, trying to figure out some kind of low that tries to form in that region sometime late in the weekend or early next week. And you can see how it lifts it up toward the North Carolina coast. That could very well be something tropical or subtropical. We'll have to wait and see if this winds up being the case. And of course, with the fact that we have a general ridge here in the east, Joe, and that high to the north, we keep seeing the run do funny things where it takes the low up to north. In this case, it takes it up to North Carolina, kind of swings it inland, and then drops it southward, back off the southeast coast, and then brings it into South Carolina. I mean, it's the fact that we don't have any kind of strong southwest flow because of the ridge position that we're in the eastern part of the United States, and the NAO is just helping to just put a wall as far as getting something, if something does form down there, to move out to the northeast. It's a very unusual setup that we have here for the first part of October.
Well, I could see that on the latest information from the National Hurricane Center that our dear friend Victor is long gone, but we knew that. Sam still is maintained as a hurricane with 80-knot winds, 90-mile-per-hour winds, and we have one area that is located just to the east of the Bahamas that has a 0% chance of cyclone formation in 48 hours, and it doesn't look like it has much of a chance through 5 days. Through 5 days, only about 10%.
Yeah,
so it may very well be that
nothing's going to happen.
It may very well be that in the coming days,
for this week,
in the coming days ahead, let's say maybe by later this week on the Atlantic tropical cyclone and disturbances map, that we may not have anything, that it may be totally devoid of any kind of tropical activity. I mean, Sam will continue to maintain its presence as a large extratropical storm, probably up near Greenland. But the map that is displayed on the National Hurricane Center website, that map goes only as far north as Newfoundland. So we're probably going to lose Sam in the next couple of days from there. And again, that disturbance you pointed out off of the Bahamas isn't going to be too long for this world either. A quiet time, hopefully.
Right. It's all very disorganized. All of that stuff's just shooting from the Caribbean northeast, where there's strong southwest winds in the upper atmosphere that are just blowing everything away. So you're not going to get, under those conditions, you're certainly not going to be able to get any kind of development. There's the upper air winds are just too darn strong. And I brought up the upper air, because of the fact that the teleconnections, as I said earlier, showing something around mid-month, perhaps a change enough to bring a brief change of the trough to the east. But let me just roll this back to closer to present time. And we're at Friday, Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday. Okay, so we're here Tuesday morning, and you see all the higher than normal pressures up in this region up here in the North Atlantic. It's extending up into eastern Canada. You have an upper low that's dropped down into Louisiana, another low wrapped up upper low, and that's absorbing SAM. That's east of Newfoundland. So that's the NAO, the negative North Atlantic oscillation at work. And then, of course, here's your next deep trough coming into the western part of the United States, which is your negative PNA. And here it is with this troughing in the west. And you can see the ridge, the southern upper low kind of opens up and moves off the east coast, and then it just kind of gets lost there. So now we're into Sunday, and those pressures are going to remain low. So I think if something forms, it's going to be from the upper low coming off and then just kind of hanging around off the southeast coast on Sunday and into the first part of next week. That's when you might wind up seeing something try to form. And we're still in a ridge position here. So it could very well, look at this. Look how blocky it is in eastern Canada, and this upper low is underneath it in North Carolina. It's a real mess in the upper atmosphere, and then you got this screaming jet from the Pacific going into the plains. So there really is no flow from Canada. In fact, the flow in Canada is southerly, going up from the Great Lakes clear up to Greenland. So it's a little unusual here. And let's see what it does late in the forecast period, because now the trough starts to shift a little bit more to the east later in the forecast period, which is why the teleconnections did what they did. This is you still have a negative NAO, but you also start to have a more positive Pacific North America index, a little more of a ridge that starts to pop up in the Rockies. We'll see what that means. That could just be, my suspicion is it'll be temporary, and then we'll go back to it for a few more days toward the end of the month, and then maybe have a bigger switch as we get into the month of November. So it'll be very interesting to see how this all plays out. And Joe, the tropics are not done yet. I think we're going to get at least a couple of more named storms out of this before it's all said and done.
Well, we're down to our last letter on the name list, and if we go beyond that, no more Greek alphabet letters. We'll be actually going to a backup set of names for the overflow. So yeah, we may very well do that. After all, some of our more notable storms in recent years have come in the middle and latter part of October, the most notable of all being Sandy in 2012. That was just a few days before Halloween. So we'll see what happens this month.
And by the way, one thing about this hurricane season that we really didn't talk about very much, but the Central Pacific, which is the area that includes Hawaii, not a single tropical cyclone has formed in its zone this season, not one. And actually, that's not that unusual, because there was a stretch, trying to remember when it was, sometime between 2010 and 2020. There was a 3-year stretch. They went 3 years without getting a single named storm. I'm not talking about the ones that form off the coast of Mexico that run westward and make it to Hawaii. But there's usually about 4 or 5 on average. I think it's 4 or 5 that form in that Central Pacific basin, and there's a whole separate name list that's given to them,
right?
Because they form in that zone, and they can impact Hawaii from time to time, but there hasn't been a single system that has formed down in that. And usually when we have a very active Atlantic season, that winds up being the case. I believe they did not have any tropical cyclones form in that zone last year either. So they're on hurricane hiatus for a while in that area.
Yeah, you could have a Category 4 storm off the coast of Baja California Sur, heading westbound, and you say to yourself, "Oh my goodness, Hawaii is in big trouble in about 5 or 6 days. No, they never are, because no matter how strong the hurricane or the disturbance happens to be off the coast of Mexico, as they head east, they always head into a much colder zone of water, which always kills these things off more or less completely. You're right, Joe. In order for Hawaii to have any kind of influence from any kind of tropical system of significance, it would have to happen in that central zone. And I believe the most noteworthy case was in '92, where they had Hurricane Aniki, which formed in the central
Right.
Pacific and ran over Kauai, the westernmost of the Hawaiian Islands. It devastated that island. I was very sad to hear about that, because I was in Kauai the year before. Any of you ever contemplate a trip to Hawaii? And Honolulu was on the island of Oahu. If you have that possibility or chance, you must somehow get to Kauai. Kauai, by far and away, is the most beautiful, the prettiest, the nicest of all of the Hawaiian Islands. If you want to see volcanoes, go to the Big Island of Hawaii. If you want to go to a cosmopolitan or a touristy type of island, you go to Oahu. The most beautiful island was Kauai. And again, Hurricane Aniki devastated that island in 1992. That came, I think, right after or right around the same time that Andrew was hitting Florida.
Mm-hmm.
So there were two major tropical disturbances.
And that was an El Nino year, if I remember correctly. By the way, if you can't, if going to Hawaii is too expensive, you could always try to win a trip by going on the Freddie Fillmore show.
Fillmore show. And then we could all go to Honolulu.
Honolulu, land of Goshen. Okay, Bill Rogers reporting moderate color in southern Vermont. So they'll be at peak, he says, next week. And in Manual 349 says, why is fall foliage peaking later than usual this year? I'm not, my understanding and experience in years where we've had wet summers, the foliage actually lasts longer. When those colors start, it takes a little longer for, the process takes longer. So it's not like in years when you have drought that you kind of wake up one morning and like the leaves have changed color, and then you wake up the next morning and they've all fallen off the trees. But everything seems to be on schedule. I mean, I don't think it's going to come any later than it usually does, but the rain at least is going to help could make for some spectacular foliage views, though, with the fact that we're not dealing with any kind of drought condition. So I think the chairman
Renata agrees with you.
Oh, okay.
Renata agrees with you, by the way. I said to her yesterday, we've been up here in Putnam Valley for about 20 years now, and I said, I could remember some early Octobers where we had a ton of leaves on the front and the back lawn, and now we don't have very many
Columbus
at all.
Day,
we do have some, but nothing. And she said, as you just said, that when we have wet summers, the wetter the summer, the more the leaves tend to hang on. Dry summers, especially very dry summers, they just kind of wither on the vine, so to speak, and then drop right off, and there's hardly much in the way of significant color. So we will eventually see the leaves, drop. Up here, I'd have to say we still have, Joe, about 90% of the leaves on the trees are still there and mostly green. So it's going to be a bit late this year, but also probably, since it's taking this long, probably we will have some very spectacular colorations, but probably not until later in the month or maybe even the beginning of November. So
I'm actually quite surprised at how many the leaves. I have leaves everywhere. I mean, the trees are still, fairly full, but a lot of leaves have come down. Now, granted, I'm in a very wooded area, so I'm going to have a lot of leaves. I'm a little surprised as early as it is, but that may have to do with the fact that the nights here are very cool. We've already temperatures down near 40. We've had a number of nights with temperatures in the 40s, so that's sort of helping the cause here. And I'm thinking that the trees here are genetically programmed to, maybe start to turn their colors perhaps a little bit sooner. And I told you the other day, the squirrels are almost all gone. I'm really surprised. There's very few squirrels around than how many I was seeing about a month ago. And even the birds, there's not a lot of birds around either. So I don't know if that's a sign, but We'll see. I'm looking forward. I want to get one good, decent snowfall while I'm this winter, uh, since I'm down here. And yes, Bill, I will broadcast from my porch. I promise. The next time I got up, when I have a free Sunday, which by the way, this Sunday will probably not be a free Sunday, so we can get everybody a heads up ahead of time. But and when the weather cooperates, I'll figure it out. Particularly if it is snowing, I'm taking it out on my deck. I think the chairman is lurking here somewhere. So we have a different approach tonight to Briller Jeopardy, since neither of us know the answers. So the chat board will be involved in all of this. Scott, if you're there, type. I know you're about 20 seconds behind me. Okay, sent yesterday. All right, now we have a problem, because if Facebook is down, if my Facebook is still down or my Messenger is still down, let me see. I'll try. Let's see if I can bring it up. In the meantime, let's see, is my Messenger working? Oh, wait, hold on, wrong. I got to switch it. I got to go from my weather page to my personal page. Oh, don't you love it? Next, switch. By the way, for those of you who are following Siberian snow cover, the snowfall has actually been on the robust side so far, and it looks like for the next couple of weeks it will remain on the robust side. Okay, Messenger is. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Let's see. Are they going to load for me? I got the circle of death, Joe.
Well,
okay, I have your message that you'll be sending the questions to the chat board after you come back live, after we do the weather. Okay, that was for Sunday, which we didn't do because I had to leave. Are you going to send the answers on Messenger? Okay, I'm all set to go. All right, 12 storms with the letter I have been retired. Joe, can we name them?
do we have one of them, Isabel?
I would say yes. I will add. I will. I will add to that. Hi, Ivan. or Yvonne. I never knew whether they was pronounced Ivan or Yvonne, but Ivan was another one. We mentioned the other day. I just happened to like. I think Isidore might be on there. Irene, definitely on there.
Irene, most definitely.
What else? Well, Ida from this year is going to be retired.
My grandmother's name, Inez. I remember an Inez.
Yes, that was a pretty hefty storm.
And my aunt Irma.
Irma, yes, Irma, yes. Right?
Irma, Aunt Irma used to come every Christmas Eve to my mother's home, and she'd always bring her broccoli.
broccoli
and cheese. A broccoli and cheese surprise.
Oh, nice. Johnny Quest points.
And what time?
Yeah.
And one time I mentioned this on the air at News 12, and Janine Rose, my news director, said, why does your Aunt Irma call it broccoli and cheese surprise? I said, well, first, Janine, came the broccoli,
right.
Then came the cheese,
and then came
and about
the surprise.
20 minutes later, surprise.
Right, exactly.
How do I get into these stories?
I don't know. Peter Bicker mentioning Isaias from last year, correct? Ione, I think from back in the 50s. I think that's a retired name. Trying to think.
Did we have one of the Greek letter?
Iota
Was Iota?
Iota from last year.
Yeah.
which we didn't give an iota about. Did we name them all?
Oh, how about not Ted Brown? Was it Ted Brown or William B. Williams? Well, Gene Clavin used to have Dr. Isidore Isotherm.
Right. No,
Did
no.
we have
I said Isidore.
Did we say Isidore?
I think Isidore was retired. I'm thinking. I don't know why Isaac keeps popping into my head. Was Isaac a retired storm?
Asimov?
Yeah, well, either way. Irma was back in Irma, I believe, was back in 17 or 18. We had Irma and Maria in the same year. Those two, powerhouse Category 5 hurricanes.
Right.
And Jose, which was almost a 5 that just missed the Leeward Islands behind Irma. That was an incredible hurricane season. Going back, if you ever want to get, look at those, just go on my YouTube library because I did some shows during all of that. It was some amazing stuff.
Do you remember Keith Eichner?
Yes.
And he used to refer to himself. For a very brief time, he was on Channel 7 doing the weather on weekends, and he used to have an almanac. He called it Ike's Almanac, like Eisenhower or whatever. Did we have an Ike? I think we had an Ike once.
I think so. I think we had an Ike. We had an Ike. Isaac was not retired, says Jonathan Ross. Oh God, I'm trying to think if we run the gauntlet here with all the eyes.
I think I ran the gauntlet with the broccoli and the cheese.
Yes. Well, you probably, yes, you certainly did. Adam Lowe says Iris in 2001.
Iris,
which I don't remember.
But was it?
9 of the ice storms that were retired, by the way, have all been since 2001. Believe it or not, Ike was retired. Yeah, Hurricane Ishtar.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't think so, Tim.
Ishtar.
It was a bad movie that they never should have made, but we won't go down. We won't go down that particular road. So Ingrid, says the chairman. We did not say Ingrid, so I think Ingrid is on there. So I think we probably named a whole bunch of them. So what are the answers? Because I don't have them. Not in front of me anyway. So anyhow, usually, with Facebook being down, it's just, finally it's got back up. So I don't know if everybody has it. Matthew Greenwood, I have no idea when the first inch of snow will fall. Well, I'll say this. If we're talking about a front-end loaded winter, it will definitely come before Christmas. So that's my guess. That's the best. That's the most you're going to get from me on that. Jonathan
Bill
Ross.
Rogers, yes. My wife does make casserole from time to time, but it depends on what kind of casserole you're talking about.
Oh, here we go. So the retired names are Ione, Inez, Iris, Isidore, Isabel, Ivan or Yvonne, Ike. Is it Igor or is it Igor? Irene, Ingrid, and Irma. So 11 have been retired from the letter I. I was trying to think off the top of my head, Joe, the other day. I was talking about, one of those times where I'm on a long, drive. Because when I drove down to Atlanta on Saturday, and I was thinking of the sea storms that were retired. So
right.
A bunch of them came up. There was Connie, Carol. Now I remembered many more while I was driving. I can't
Charlie.
now I can't read. Charlie, another sea storm that I remember. What else? Connie,
Congolia?
Carol. Hold on. Charlie. And there was a few others that I remembered on my drive, but now I only seem to be able to recall those 3. And Connie and Carol were in back-to-back years and both impacted the Northeast.
Right.
Connie in 55 and Carol the year before in 54, which was pretty interesting. C has 9 retired, and so does F. All right, so Jonathan's like throwing them up here. So it's got Carol, Connie, Carla, Cleo. Oh, of course, the obvious one, Camille. Celia, which hit Texas, which hit Corpus Christi. Carmen, in 1975, if I remember correctly. Caesar or Cesar, and Charlie. So actually, got at least half of those. All right, well, that seemed to work, sort of. All right, so you know what? It's already past 9:15, so we've had a very long show tonight. We were jabbering away, which is fine. We like to jabber.
Yes.
And now that they're we are, by the way.
And now that they're no longer, by the way, in New England, they just made this announcement about a week or so ago. The NPR stations in New England are no longer playing reruns of the Tappert brothers, the 2 guys who used to talk about car talk. One of them passed away sadly some years ago, and they kept running or rerunning programs, but they were dated. I mean, like you'd hear them get a phone call from somebody saying, "What am I going to do with my 1977, LeSabre?" They just couldn't run those shows anymore. They were funny and interesting, but they said, so now that they're no longer on the air, what's the closest thing you could have gotten to Click and Clack or the Tappert brothers? Not necessarily about cars, but about weather. Here we are.
Well, give NPR a call.
I think if somebody would just think outside the box, I think it'd be a very popular show. I really do. I think a lot of people are into weather.
It works for me. I mean, they can just pull it off of YouTube whenever they want.
Yes. Wouldn't it be funny if they'd be able to take phone calls? That would be a riot.
Yeah, but then we'd have to get like a Bob Grant person to work with us so that he could, say, "Get off my phone."
Oh boy. Well, I'm ready to call it a night.
All right, so let's do that, and let's bring back those that bring the Joe and Joe Weather Show to us, and that is Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. For this coming season, you snow removal guys, get your salt orders in. 631-756-1125 for the best prices in the tri-state area and beyond. OmniTrueValue.com, the website. Wholesale holiday lighting by Giannini at 162 Ocean Avenue in Lindenhurst, New York. And their telephone number is 631-957-5106. And don't forget, you contractors, or those of you who want to get into this business, an open house free event on Tuesday, October the 5th, which is tomorrow from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. at 162 Ocean Avenue, which is right next door from 164. And you can RSVP by calling 631-957-5106, or you can go to the website, which is liholidaylighting.com. So you and I will be back tomorrow night at 7:30 Eastern Time.
We'll be here. I'll be here.
All right, folks. Thanks for being here. Thanks for the
They better be here.
Thanks to the chairman, Mike McGuire, Izzy D, who all hit super chat tonight. I think I got everybody on there, and we'll see everybody tomorrow. The chairman, you have to be make sure you wear a couple of masks and be safe out there doing your COVID runs. And tomorrow we're going to do the some letter between G and A. Will be on the list tomorrow. Nighty night, everybody.
Nighty night.